Hello, welcome to a video series that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, probably as close to when I first started YouTube and maybe even a little bit before. Now, how I found YouTube, if I'm not a little bit blurry on it, is that we were going to find out that there were going to be trailers for the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie on YouTube, and that's how you were able to watch them. And so when I watched them, I then found out that there were other people that were doing videos on toys, and I already had been a collector, but I never knew that people did YouTube videos about their thoughts and reviews and all that kind of stuff. And one of the videos that I came upon was Darth Vader orders a Happy Meal. And if you have seen that one, then you know which one I'm talking about. And if you haven't, then you really should check out Filmmaker Mike's channel. I have told him this many times before, but every time I watch one of his videos, he keeps me, entertained and motivated. And of course, you guys hitting that subscribe button and everything also keeps me motivated. But when I saw that video, and then he started doing G.I. Joe reviews, and his, facial expressions and his excitement and all that kind of stuff really came through. And when I saw how much fun he was having, I was like, hey, I know a bit or two about G.I. Joe 2. Maybe I could try this and maybe it will work out, and then maybe some other stuff that I'm hoping will happen. And so here I've done it, but I couldn't really feel like I could do this much talking without facing the camera. And I didn't have a camera when I first started. I was doing it all on this cell phone, and you can find out a little bit more about it in my changes video if you haven't already seen that. And if you have already seen the video, then I'm sorry if I'm rehashing it, but I'm trying to stay away from rehashing it. But couldn't do facing the camera because the cell phone wouldn't allow me to do that, and I didn't have a viewfinder. So now being able to face the camera, it gives you guys something to look at, because some of my subscribers that I had at the very beginning were kind enough to say that you really should have some type of display or face the camera or something if you're going to do lots of talking without actually showing something. So here you are looking at my mug, and I hope that's not too painful and all that kind of stuff, but whatever. So yeah, being able to face the camera makes it a little bit better. I'm calling this Getting to Know a G.I. Joe Fan / Collector. If you have done your own Getting to Know a Transformer, Getting to Know a Geek, fill in the blank, then some of these questions will sound very familiar. And I'm not trying to take credit for them, and I would give credit for them, but I don't want to give credit to the wrong person and then find out that that wasn't who did it. And so yeah, this is my take on Getting to Know a G.I. Joe Fan, because the only other person that I have been able to find that has a Getting to Know G.I. Joe collector or fan is Form BX257, so FORM BX257. And so I'm glad that he did one, and I am now doing this one and probably a few more if I keep talking. And I also want to tag my best friend Dave, one of 3 Knights, because I'm doing this to share with you guys, but also to share a little bit about what he may not know about me, even though we do talk, thankfully, quite a bit. So the first question that I have is, how long have you been a collector? Now, I first started maybe collecting when I was a kid, much like many of you, but unfortunately I stopped. When I first started, I'm thinking it was possibly a G.I. Joe figure. It could have been a He-Man figure, because if you're a child of the 80s, maybe you're like me, where you had G.I. Joe, you had GoBots, you had He-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't really ever have a Transformer, I don't think, when I was growing up. I think those were too expensive for me or my family to afford, so I don't think I ever had any Transformers, but I did have pretty much any other 80s line that most likely you guys had too. So I did have quite a collection, but I don't think I knew that I was a collector or really thought about it. Then I, met my husband Michael, and we went off to college, and pretty much my collection stayed home. And I hope he doesn't get mad at this, but one of the things I have to say is I don't have much of anything that I had as a kid, because when I moved away, my brother had a girl that he really liked, I guess, according to my mom, and he gave away all my toys to this girl's brother in order to, flirt with her or something like that. So pretty much everything that I owned as a kid was given away by my brother. So then, didn't do anything from 1994-ish, I'm assuming, which, was kind of odd that it was around that time, because that's actually when G.I. Joe pretty much stopped being put on the shelves. And I think they planned on a line in 1995, but, unless you have the prototypes or whatever, that line was never really released to the mass retail. And so, kind of interesting though that that's when I actually stopped collecting, was at the same time that the line was no longer being on the shelves. So nothing really happened until maybe 1997, maybe 1998. Still a little bit blurry. And that was because at the time we had a roommate who was going online, and she was shopping, trying to find a dress mannequin for her sister. And she was on this site called eBay. And at that time I had never heard of eBay. First time that I really ever was around computers, didn't really have any when we were growing up as kids. And when she told me she was on this site, and it was called eBay, and it was an auction site and all this kind of stuff, I went on there and I ended up finding a figure. And to this day, unless you think about that all this other stuff that I've been doing was meant to happen, I still don't know what made me go on there. But I went on there, and I was just going to get one figure, one vehicle, and I thought the best combination would be the first figure that I ever remembered getting as a kid. And that was from my grandmother. I believe me and my brother both went and got the same figure, and it was Serpentor, and he came with his chariot. And that's why I want to believe that 1987 is pretty much when I first got introduced to G.I. Joe, because I possibly saw it on TV because of the movie, animated movie, and then I went to the store, and for my birthday or Christmas or whatever it was, my grandmother bought me that, and I pretty much had it up until I went to the local swimming water area, and I took him out, and I'm thinking maybe in a tiger fish, if I'm not mistaken, so a little G.I. Joe boat, and unfortunately he sunk to the bottom. And of course I did my best to look through the algae filled and very dirty water and everything to try and find it, but there's no way you're gonna find it. So for some reason that stuck with me, and went on eBay, found him, and then from then on I've been collecting. So I guess I've mostly been a collector for 12-ish years, but that's pretty much as close that I can think of when I first started collecting. And then of course went on, and from eBay found out about yojo.com, and so on and so on. So we've kind of already answered question number 2 in me explaining question number 1, which is, what is your earliest memory of a G.I. Joe or a Transformer, or on like that. So yeah, pretty much the Serpentor, getting it for a gift from my grandmother, is pretty much my first memory of G.I. Joe. Now, another thing that kind of goes along that lines is He-Man. I wanted to share this one, and I guess it goes a little off the question, but with He-Man was another one I wanted to share, and that was Battle Armor Skeletor. I don't think that was the first figure I had, but definitely a memory that stuck with me, and the reason why was because I was a kid, and I didn't realize it, but I ended up getting that figure, and I don't think that was my first He-Man figure, but I got that one, and my dad actually was using it, and he was trying to show me how it worked. And he went and he slashed it, and it, broke, I thought, and then he did it again, and it broke, and I just remember running away crying, because I was like, I wanted to do it, because for whatever reason, I thought you could only do it once. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that one, and I'll probably share that in a future video again, but just another memory I wanted to share. So then it says, what is your favorite G.I. Joe of all time and why? And I'm going to say really not favorite G.I. Joe of all time, because, thankfully G.I. Joe is still on the shelves, and there's still hopefully some really cool stuff coming out. So it's kind of hard to say what is my favorite G.I. Joe of all time. So I'm pretty much going to say that my favorite G.I. Joe character of all time is Cobra Commander. And this is again where I'm hoping not to offend anybody, but me and Dave have talked about this, and hopefully in his video he'll talk a little bit, no pressure Dave of course, about who and why his favorite character, whether G.I. Joe or Transformers, because Dave is a collector of both of them and I try my best to just stick with G.I. Joe, is Cobra Commander. And I think the reason why was not just because of the look that he had, but because of my upbringing and growing up. Maybe this happened to you guys quite a bit too, but I was unfortunately one of those people that, for whatever reason, was bullied and teased, and I have my own reasons of why, whether they really felt they knew that I was gay, whether I did something, even though sometimes I do my best not to, if you're being bullied, you didn't do anything. It's on that person or on that person's upbringing or whatever that did it. You didn't do anything. No one would ask to be bullied. And so when I saw Cobra Commander and how he was treated on G.I. Joe, I know it sounds kind of silly or whatever, but I think I had that connection because I'm like, I know what that feels like, and yeah, he's a bad guy and all that kind of stuff, but it actually built a lot of anger in me from being bullied. And that was one of the thoughts that I had all the time, was that if only I was Cobra Commander, if only I had an army, if only I had this, I would teach those people a lesson. I would be protected. It's kind of the same way with Transformers. I always remember having a dream growing up that, they were, they weren't bullies, the ones that liked Transformers, but they weren't really that nice either, in my class, and they would always draw Transformers, and I just always thought, if only a Transformer could come and rip the roof off and, pick me up and all that kind of stuff and save me. So, yeah, that's my favorite character. I mean, not only because of that, I mean, nowadays it's just because he's very cool, and no matter what anybody says, I think he's, not just a Darth Vader knockoff. I really like Cobra Commander. His, mask, how basically you have to look at yourself and your soul, and you have no idea what is on the other side of that mirrored chrome helmet faceplate. So that's just really cool. And then the fact that he's had so many different looks, and he pretty much always looks cool in most of those looks.